Okay, I believe we are recording now. All righty. Well, good morning, everyone. This lovely Tuesday morning here on LinkedIn. My name is Douglas Burns, and you are listening to Frame Perspectives, a live LinkedIn audio event podcast hosted by yours truly, where we talk about all kind of fun things in the realm of building businesses and marketing and of course, being that I'm a commercial photographer, I'm going to talk about photography at some point and bring that back into the conversation. But we want to thank you so much for joining us live this morning. This is being recorded, so if you miss out, if you drop out for any reason, look for the recording. I'll try to get that up later today, and I'll post the link here on this page as well for that. This is LinkedIn Live, so as we have discovered, things happen. If for whatever reason you're at your desk and you lose connection on your desktop or your laptop, join us on your tablet or your phone, and vice versa. It's just stuff happens, and this is where we are in this day and age. Joining me this morning is a very good, close personal friend of mine, Mariam Haddad, who is the founder of, I'm going to get the name of the company because I always mess this up. It is, I had to, and because my printer went on strike, I don't have anything printed out, and so I'm having to juggle multiple screens. Mariam, help me out. Give me the name of your company because I always mess it up.
Yes, the Performance Communication Company.
The Performance Communication Company. I keep wanting to call it the English because you started off with English communications 3 years ago. So we're gonna talk about the brand change too. So anyway, so she's joining us this morning. And she is an incredible performance artist, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Mariam has got the most gorgeous, classically trained vocalist in town. I've heard her sing on multiple occasions, and it'll be a treat if you ever get a chance to hear her live sing. But we're also going to talk about how she uses her background in communications to help businesses, especially in the STEM world, and how she uses those to help businesses perform, move their businesses forward, market their message, and increase their sales, which at the end of the day is something that as business owners and business people we all want to do. Mariam, thank you so much for joining me this morning. By the way, this is the day after Veterans Day, if you're listening to the recording. So to all our veterans, whether you've served in the United States military or Coast Guard, or you have served in the military for your own home country, thank you so much for doing that. We know that what a sacrifice that is. I never had the honor to wear the uniform, but I'm a huge fan of those who have. So thank you so much. But Mariam, let's chat about. And I'm glad you had your cup of coffee this morning. I'm going to get choked up here. Let's talk a little bit about the performance communication companies, and why you started it, and when you started it, how that spark started, and how you got to where you are today. Because you talked about, I mentioned that you're a vocalist, a classically trained vocal performer and vocalist, but you talk about helping people in business find their own voice. So tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, and thanks for having me on, and good morning to everybody that's listening. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to start today, and by the way, I'm excited because we're celebrating our 18th year in business, thank God.
Congratulations.
And that beautiful journey officially began October the 6th, 2006. And at that point, we ran our first program called Say It With Power at Technique. I was invited in, actually, because of that performing arts background that you mentioned, as well as my background in marketing and business. And I have a lot of expertise in regards to the voice and voice training and singing and all of that as well as cross-cultural communications. And in fact, it was over tacos and margaritas at about midnight with my life coach. She was my life coach at the time and a really dear friend, and I love her dearly. Marilyn, hello. And she actually was having a challenge. There were amazingly talented foreign-born thought leaders and experts that needed to get up and speak at world conferences, and they were really having a challenge owning who they were and also meeting the audience where they were in order to tell an effective story of business impact while also wowing them with all of the science that's behind what they do and the phenomenal impact of that, if, for example, to the oil and gas industry. And so she was a bit challenged because they'd had various coaches in of different kinds, cross-cultural communications, presentation coaches, communication coaches, ESL coaches, diction coaches, and they couldn't pull it together. So essentially, I asked how were they training them, and based on what I heard, I said, "Oh, well, it sounds like they're training them backwards if the bogey is performance. So go do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that should fix it." And she said, "Great, you're hired." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Why on earth would these very lovely PhDs in science want to hear from an opera singing concert pianist?" She said, "Oh, I think you'll be surprised." So she actually mentored me to get the framework set up properly. I have actually coached and have a love of coaching people since I was 12. I turned my mother's living room into my first venture and studio, and really fell in love with coaching and drawing out the beauty and the voice inside of people. At that point, it was through piano, and it stuck, and it translated itself, morphed over the years to that expression. Needless to say, back to the 2006, the program went exceptionally well, and HR, I thought I had done something wrong. They came up to me and asked me, "What did you do?" And I said, "Oh gosh, did I get in trouble? What do you mean, what did I do?" And they were quite surprised because the class had been at 7 a.m. twice a week for 2 hours. And there were 13 very busy engineers and leaders that were in that class, and they showed up to all of them. And apparently that was unheard of. And then they were even more bowled over when they knocked on their door to thank them for the training and for bringing me to help them learn more about their body as their instrument and their voice, and to tell the story and to be able to speak as themselves. One of those leaders actually won Best Presenter out of 25 companies at his Dry Tree Forum. And honestly, Doug, I just went and had fun. And I was just delighted. I was just delighted. It was just a different expression of these talents that I have. I sing in 9 different languages. I've been trained in the diction of 5 pretty strongly.
So how fluent are you in any of them? It's one thing to be able to sing that language or pronounce it, but how fluent are you?
Yes, well, that's a different thing, right?
Right.
You're in opera. Yeah, I never wanted to be the American sounding soprano. Oh mio babino caro. It's just I don't want to do that. So I really have to study, but I speak Spanish fluently. My Arabic has become quite terrible because I never use it, but growing up, we had to communicate with Dad's parents, in Arabic and in English. So I work my way around Spanish extremely well. And of course, that means, I love Italian. I love singing in German. French is so hard. My friend Karine is from France, and she sounds so beautiful speaking French. But yeah, but the diction is what's important here, especially for that program. And also connecting the ear and the brain. And coming up with a fluid response. And so I wasn't necessarily teaching people English at all. I was more helping them leverage what was already there at a performance level. And so, yeah, from there, those engineers, actually one of them, we voted for best improved in the class. And this gentleman, he was so brilliant, Doug, and after he started crying when the class voted him best improved. He was like 75% improved, they all said,
Oh,
in 6 weeks.
wow.
Yeah, in 6 weeks. And afterward, he came up to me and he thanked me. And he said, I just want to thank you for giving me my dignity back. I had stopped speaking up in meetings. That floored me because he was one of the company's top talent. And to realize that he had stopped speaking up, he said, and the reason was, he said, I feel such shame and embarrassment when people look at me because they can't understand me and look at me as though I'm stupid. The reality is I speak 4 languages fluently. I think he had like something like 2 PhDs in all kinds of science things and smart things that I don't have. And it broke my heart. And you could see that it had been a very painful thing for him. And so as a result, he just stopped speaking up. Can you imagine the impact and the loss to the company for one person doing that, much less a global company with thousands, right? And so I was so joyful that he had found his voice again, that he'd learned to use it. And voices, it has many different kinds of functions. I wrote an article about that recently, that I was just happy to see him do that. And then all the other engineers said, please don't stop. We've been looking for this solution. We've never found it. Just go knock on all the doors of the oil and gas companies in the energy corridor and you'll be set. So the Arab entrepreneur that I am, I said, oh, okay. And
Well,
actually, I fell in love. I transitioned predominantly from music over fully into the business sphere at that point for a lot of reasons. And at the top of the list was recognizing that I have a set of talents that could actually help people move out of their pain and create a bigger impact of a positive nature. So,
well, let me ask you, the people, because you're dealing with a lot of engineers and scientists and guys that are probably extremely comfortable with a pen and paper, small group discussion and whatnot. Do you find that because from what I know of you and your background, not having not having studied any kind of stagecraft, probably never did theater or band or anything of that nature, maybe even as a kid, right? Do you find that they have a harder time getting in front of an audience than someone who maybe comes from a more general arts background or a fine, or I don't want to say fine arts, but a general studies background that maybe has had more of that of exposure to being around some more of those performance types things, even just as a kid growing up?
So the answer is yes, and then there's more, right? So for the average, I would say for the average individual who really is a lot on the science side, and I'm not saying all STEM and innovation people are this way by any stretch. That would be a gross thing to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I will say that there's that because their predominant processing is math logic in nature, a lot of times there's a desire to really understand the whole picture first before kind of dipping their toe in the water and then feeling comfortable and confident. And so the other side of it is that they are highly intrapersonal, and I much prefer that term, intrapersonal, rather than shy or introverted. And the reason I say that is because based on Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory, that description is that the individual is much more comfortable, really more looking at the dynamics in the room because they are observing and seeing such a wider swath of things that others who don't necessarily have a hefty dose of that intelligence might miss. And so as a result of those two natural intelligences together, it's actually the interpersonal intelligence that makes somebody very comfortable being the life of the party, the center, on stage. And then there are those of us, I am hugely interpersonal in nature. A lot of people are always surprised by that, but I grappled with massive, massive amounts of anxiety and fear anytime I would step foot on stage, to the point of, like, not kidding, amnesia. Like, I would practice for a year on a piano concerto and then go to a competition and then literally step foot on stage, and I'd look at the piano and I could have sworn I played the flute. Like, I didn't even recognize the piano.
Wow.
This practice makes perfect thing is a bunch of hogwash, because I have put in thousands of hours of practice, and for it to be just gone, there's something else. So that actually drove my intense interest in the brain, in neuroscience, in learning, in cognitive behavioral change, in all kinds of modalities, to understand why was that happening and how do I overcome that. So that's one part of it. The other part of it, yes, you also have a lot of people in that space that are coming from different countries. So for many, English is a second language. So now, I mean, I am always blown away that somebody, for example, whose first language is Mandarin or Spanish, can operate equally well in English at a professional level. Are you kidding me? Wow, that's like amazing. But it becomes challenging, and I've had to, like, for example, I've been interviewed on the radio before in Spanish. Like, there, inside there's a lot that needs to come into an automation of muscle memory to be able to speak fluently and confidently in a language other than your own. And then the third part of it is the whole, just the skill set of being able to pull a story together of impact. That's one part of it. The other part of it is being able to deliver that story. And the third part of it is the presence. So it's what you're saying, how you say it, and who you are, right? And so if you haven't worked on those, or you've not worked on them in such a way that they can come together as an integrated whole, anytime you're stepping foot into something that would be triggering for the brain, then you have a whole other experience, and instead of things that happen, right, that then are preventative to doing a great job.
Folks, you are listening to Mariam Haddad of, I keep wanting to call it the performance companies. That's not right. That's
the performance communication company.
Performance communication companies. Yeah, we're going to get this right before the end of the hour, I promise. But anyway, you are listening to Frame Your Perspective live on LinkedIn with Mariam Haddad, and I'm your host, Douglas Burns of D&B Productions, and we are talking about performance, and we're talking about how performance can help propel business this morning. If you have a question for Mariam, we'd love to hear from you. This is a ongoing conversation. And so feel free to chime in. You can either DM me your questions here on LinkedIn, or raise your hand here, and we'll bring you on stage. Mariam, you touched on a couple things, and I want to, because so many of the people who listen we're business people first and foremost. We're either founders or we're in marketing. We're trying to tell our story. And you mentioned knowing your story and crafting your story for your audience. What are some tips that you would just to anybody who is maybe a little nervous, whether English is a first or second language, and because it may be, a lot of people just, even native speakers have trouble communicating, right? So what would be some tips that you would give to someone specifically in business who is saying, hey, I've got a story to tell, or maybe I don't know what my story is, but I know I need to tell a story in order to communicate with a potential client and maybe land that next contract?
Absolutely. And so I think it boils down three pillars, right quick. One is, who are you? Two is, what do you do, and what is it that's special about what you do? And so that brings us to then, what do you say, right? What's the story? What's the narrative? And then the third would be, how do you say it? How are you telling that story? And that would be really the storytelling aspect of it. And so let's focus quickly on, I think, the start of it. If you're in your own business and you're a founder of something, That's especially important because a lot of times, and I learned this extremely well, and I want to give her credit. My really dear friend, and she partnered with me for a long time, Jennifer Welch, and she's been a very trusted partner and advisor for many years on brand. In fact, she helped build the brand and did a lot of culture work up at Shell for many, many years. And then she transitioned to helping businesses to really set their brand up, right? And so I learned from the very best on that. And she really brought something to my attention that was so important. And I fell in love with that concept. And I really work on teaching that. And it's a lot about who are you and what is your personal brand and what are you purposeful about? What is your purpose? And so that's the whole concept of significance, right? And how does that come into the golden thread that you then weave into your company in an aligned way? And what's the purpose of your company? So that gives a very solid foundation of who are you? And so I don't know if I was doing a series on the Transformation Tuesdays that I've started, and it was about significance, and it's about just that, discovering essentially the heartbeat of you that's your unique thumbprint. That is the song of significance. Nobody else will have that or do it the way that you do. They may be in common in your field. They may be better at what you do than you do, but they're never going to do it the way that you do that. And so really coming to the understanding of what that is, how that feels, because it emanates from very deeply within. It really emanates at the soul level, I would say. And being able to be conscious to that and sink into that when you're in front of people allows you to then speak from the fire within. That was one of the posts that I did on significance for the Transformation Tuesdays. And I referenced Mr. Ferrari, who was one of the really amazing teachers that I've studied with in my life. In fact, he sang on stage with Maria Callas and studied with the great Beniamino Gili for many years. And he always taught me, like, it would blow me away. I'd be in a voice lesson, and the man was like 90 at the time, and would just, he'd finally, out of frustration, open his mouth and just sing the phrase. And it would literally part my hair. Like, it came from the very, like, essence of his being. And I remember I said, how do you do that? So, and essentially the message was, you sing from the fire within, right? But you can't sing from the fire within if you don't know where it is and how to plug it in. It's kind of like, how do you get gas in the tank of your car so that you can drive it? And that's where someone like me comes along and helps you excavate it and turn it into a golden thread that you can sew through stuff. Then the second pillar, what do you do? And I think that that's a much harder question to answer, right? Yes, okay, well, I help people communicate, but I also do so much more than that, right? And so it's finding what it is, the essence of what you truly do, that is so important. And when I say essence, I want you to think of perfume. I gave a talk, actually, at Victoria Myers. She had a mastermind, and she invited me to come and talk to her leaders on executive presence. And I had this picture of the most expensive perfume in the world. And we're not talking the eau de toilette. We're talking like the really expensive stuff that's like $1 million an ounce. You know, like it is high value, right? You're not getting the watered down version. You're getting the gold, right? And so you want to keep excavating on the what you do till you can get it to that essential level. And Einstein said, like, if you can talk about something simply, you truly understand it. And I think it takes time to excavate that and to shape it, and then to marry it to who you are. And again, that's what we love helping people and companies and teams do.
A lot of soul searching, it sounds like.
I'm sorry.
So that sounds like a lot of soul searching that we may not be comfortable with doing on ourselves.
Well, it is a lot of soul searching, but like all soul searching, it also has to have feet that walk on the linear plane, right? And so it's about this marriage and this balance between the inner and the external. So in strategic communications, we talk about internal communication, we talk about external communication. I take it to a whole other level deeper. I first deal with the human being and work on that internal alignment and excavation. And then I bring it into contact with the external, which is now how do I convey that strategically to the world around me in order to get stuff done, in order to solve problems, in order to move ideas, in order to get buy-in or belief or advocacy or to sell things, right? And then there's also underneath the essence of it that it's hearts and minds that are communicating. So it's human to human and heart to heart, always keeping relationship in front of us. It's quite complex if you think about it. But just, for example, a concert pianist in the playing of one, for example, Beethoven's sonata, they've tracked on their mind. The brain is making over 50,000 complex decisions in the playing of that one piece. And so then what I've done is take things down to the level of that human being as an instrument of communication and reality creation. And I build that. And a part of how we build that, just like at an instrument, is you can't do it outside of the experience. So you also have to use the experience in order to get there, right? So we've also got to be quite functional. So there's the me, but then what is it that I need to achieve? And very importantly, who am I serving on the other side? And that's a lot about the precision of the message and the packaging of the message, which has a lot to do with the audience, right? So there's a lot of dynamics there in the what do you say. But so far we said pillar one, who are you? Pillar two, what do you do? And really, why is it of value? Why is it of value to the people on the other side? And how does it help them solve their needs and their pains, that which keeps them up at night, right? And so, and then the third is now, how am I going to say that? And if we've already dealt with the narrative, the how that I'm talking about at this stage is the storytelling aspects. That's the verbal and the nonverbal communication of that story. Face, body, eyes, and yes, voice. So there you have it.
There you have it. There you have it. So how much stagecraft do you bring to your students when because we talk, because we there's and I'm just going to speak because folks, if you don't know, I'm also a musician. No, I'm not the quality musician that Mariam is. I will be perfectly frank on that. I play a 5-string banjo. Okay, I do not play concert piano. I do not sing at the level that Mariam does. I'm okay in church, but that's about as far as I go. But there are things, working from the diaphragm and how you hold yourself and how you project and there is some stagecraft to a well-given speech. How much stagecraft do you bring to your clients, and at what point do you introduce that to them? Because you talked a little bit already about having you do all this in the practice of actually doing it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I've actually broken it down to an engineered process in science. So in the article that I wrote, I talked about the 4 lenses of voice, and there, you've got functional, you've got physical, you've got scientific, and you've got metaphorical voice. And then you have how those voices are woven into the context of corporate, space, personal, and societal community impacts, right? So that's the crafting of the story. And the crafting of the story, it's essentially gives us, I don't want to say a script, it gives us what we're going to say. But then bridging over to that, the how I say it and being able to say it, that's where there's a lot of work on that stagecraft and on the art of speaking, right? And so it really depends on where a person comes in. But over time, I've developed 4 proven curriculums, for example, that we've run at global Fortune 100 and 500 companies like BP, Shell, Chevron, and many other companies like that. And essentially created, for example, coursework that deals with that inner personal brand and the voice. I have over 72 hours of curriculum on the voice alone because it's such a complex thing. And you can have the metaphorical side of it, you can have the physical side of it, and it just depends on where a person is and what they need, or where a company is and what their story needs, right? And then the third part of it is also helping them to authentically and empathetically be able to tell that story. So there's the whole storytelling aspect, and that's one of our courses, for example. It's called Masterful Delivery. So I broke it up into different pieces so that we could then, based on where a team is, a company, or an individual, we can very easily meet them where they are and either create awareness or create a step change or utterly transform what they're doing.
That's incredible. The folks, if you're just joining us, my name is Douglas Burns. I'm your host here on Framed Perspectives. I'm a commercial and corporate photographer based here in Houston, and on this podcast, we talk about a number of things related to business and marketing and, of course, photography. But today, we're talking to Mariam Haddad of the, I'm going to get it right, do not stop, the Performance Communication Company. Woohoo! I've been struggling with that name for all morning long. And we're talking about finding your voice and using your voice to tell your story, specifically in the realm of business, and how we can find our voice. We've talked about finding our fire within to speak from, as well as why we bring value to our clients and how to present that. So if you have a question for Mariam, we'd love to hear from you. You feel free to shoot me a quick direct message here on LinkedIn, or you can hover over your icon there on the event, and click on the dots, raise your hand, and we'd love to bring you on stage and have you ask your question. Mariam, if as we are building our businesses, we're a founder, or we're trying to communicate a message of our business, what sort of things should we keep in mind as we're crafting that message?
Sure. So what I'm interpreting through what you've said and hearing is it actually correlates now. A minute ago, we were just visiting about the individual story, right? So we'll call that the personal brand, the narrative, and the storytelling of the individual. And so now we're shifting over to the business itself.
Absolutely.
Right? So
yeah.
So that would come more from what's called the brand side. And the way I like to think about brand is it's a big it. So kind of like a big entity. So as you think of like those Matushka dolls, the Russian dolls that sit inside of each other, the individual in the story is kind of the tiny little Matushka, whereas the big Matushka that holds all of the layers inside would be the equivalent of the brand. And just like a human being has a soul, well, guess what? The brand has its soul as well. And so we have to do the same kind of work on the brand that you do on the individual. We just do it in the individual. And so as we're thinking of how do I best convey what my business does, it's very important to also understand, it's a little bit like Michelangelo that was like when he would sculpt, he would actually, he had the vision of the angel, for example, that was in the marble, but he would keep digging away at that sculpture until the angel that he saw emerged in the marble. And so discovering our brand is a lot like that. And there's one part of it is, what is the soul, and what is this brand, and what is our brand promise? And that encapsulates your purpose, your vision, your mission, and your values. And that's a part of then what gives the narrative and the style and the character, right? And how that brand behaves. We have to take that into account when we are telling the story of the brand and figuring out what are the most important things to say. So that's one side of it. The other side of it has a lot to do with where am I speaking about this business? What's the communication vehicle? And who is the audience specifically. So if you, let's say you have the founder, and the founder has been invited to go and talk about their business, then we've got to look at where is the founder speaking, who is the audience dynamically, and what does the audience expect out of that talk? And what is it that the audience needs? And then we also have to equally look at why is the founder talking? So in the end, the simplest way to look at it is why is somebody listening and why is someone talking? But in that instance, that founder is in part there, of course, through their own voice, but more largely through the voice of the brand, the large brand, the company brand. And so we look at then, what is it that that founder really needs to share with that audience to meet the audience where they are and to create intersections of value? And so there's a lot of strategy in that, right? It's not something that's just off the cuff at first. It has to be explored and it has to be iterated. A lot like Michelangelo in the looking and trying to emerge the angel in the marble. And so there's a good deal of patience that needs to come with that. So you come up with that first message, and then from there, you're basically looking at what, why, and how, right? And I like to lead with why. I really believe in the whole Simon Sinek, concept of the why. And then it's finding the voice of that and how to express that in the narrative voice of the company that aligns with the company and the soul of it, but speaking it through your voice, authentically, empathetically. And by the way, let me just say this. I do not like the word convincing. I fully assigned the idea that free will is love. And I'm there. If I've been invited to speak somewhere, I'm there to share a message that is actually of service. And so then I really don't want to convince people. I want to invite them into the value that can happen as a result of that one conversation alone. Every conversation is a creation of a new reality. And we can actually think in first instance, where am I? Where do I hope I'll be? You set a directional guide. And then if you've done your prep work and your homework ahead of time, it leaves you free to experience those in the room, the energy in the room, and to really meet them where they are to craft an excellent experience that's, first of all, meaningful, second of all, compelling, and third of all, memorable.
I think it's a different way to look at sales if you think about it, because a lot of sales training is convincing the person opposite that you have the best solution to whatever their problem is. But if you're inviting them, if you're saying this is what I do and I invite you to take a look at it, and because I believe that this is a good solution for you. But you have to make that decision. I think that's a different way. I think that flips sales on its ear, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's actually at the essence of one of our training programs, the Elite Sales Warrior. Because you can see this is a lot of work. It's like, I always think of like the King Arthur times, you've got somebody that's got to be a horse, and like how much that has to be happening all at once. You've got to train each thing in at a singular level, and there be enough conditioning so that it could come together as the whole. And there's a lot to that whole equation. There's neuroscience, there's heart and mind, there's relationship building, and there's good old-fashioned doing the critical thinking. And for me, when I work with clients, that's where a lot of people have a misperception of how much time it actually really takes and care to emerge a story of value and a caring for the other side. I'll give you an example. I have an additional program. It's called Speaker 911 or Sales 911, SaaS Prep. And the reason is there are times where either you've run out of runway to prepare accordingly to fully maximize the value of that opportunity. and to bring your best to it. And there's also where, man, you realize that there's a gap and you don't know how you're going to get your team there fast. And so I called recently to help really get the pitch to that final level. And there was we had a week. And brilliant. Oh my gosh, I love the guys on this team. They're so much heart and excellent professionals. And we really needed to work hard and fast to emerge that final version of the story that would speak not just to the individual that he's not the ultimate decision maker. It will influence the board to make the final decision, right? And so then we had to really work on angling multiple aspects of that story and equip and empower the torchbearer to take the message, because in that example, the sales team was not actually going to give the final pitch, right? And so there's a lot of layers to that. And so we came in and worked on that so that the whole narrative could be built around intersections of value and multiple perspectives of it. And that's what we call really strategic communication. It's strategy of it. One part of it is brand, one part is strategy, one part of it is story, so that the intersections of value are clear and apparent. And then we can invite people into the value of that. I don't want to convince anyone, and I don't want salespeople to either, because if you do, essentially, are you really doing your job? And at the end of the day, I don't know, I think if you've got to convince me, I really don't know what I'm buying. And that means that there's going to be a lack of clarity about deliverables and expectations. And we're just setting ourselves up from the get-go for a much harder time and potentially a not so successful customer success journey.
Which at the end of the day is what we want. We want a customer raving about what it is that we provided for them, so that they are lined up to either buy from us again or refer additional business to us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Advocacy. They become essentially, they carry you in their hearts first and then their minds. It's the experience of you. And that brings us back to you're the founder and you're speaking somewhere, right? And we want to move through the cycles of buy-in, which is the mind, beliefs, which is the heart, and advocacy, which is the full experience of you, is really the value of it is seen, and someone then carries you with them forever, an indelible imprint within them.
That I've got nothing to add to that. Hey, I want to transition because we mentioned this at the top of the show, but I want to bring it back to this. You are celebrating 18 years of being in business, and I want to say, one, congratulations. That is a huge accomplishment for any small business. But you're doing something very special with this 18 years being in business with a couple of nonprofits that you're working with. Let's talk very briefly about what you're doing there.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I am so excited. And later today for Transformation Tuesdays, I'm going to be launching this on LinkedIn. So this is the pre-show scoop. Yes. And so there are 3 nonprofits that are near and dear to my heart. Actually, there are more, but I picked 3. And because, I think that the challenge is there are some nonprofits that are doing exceptional work, and the founders are entrepreneurs focused on social impact. And a lot of times, nonprofits can be under-resourced. And as a result of that great work eventually just dies out because the people trying to do the work get so exhausted. And so I believe that the storytellers like myself and like a good friend, David Reed, he's the CMO and CTO for NOV. And in fact, he's the founder of one of those nonprofits, Red M. And I am learning so much from working with him about how important the storytelling aspect is for the nonprofit, for us to be sort of torchbearers and front runners, So then the funding can make its way finally to that nonprofit in order for the good work to get to happen. And so that sparked this, and it really was the concept of how we're going to celebrate our 18th year really came through prayer in my heart. And what emerged was be generous. So the reason that the performance communication company even exists is because of the generosity of the hearts and minds of those who have worked with us over the years, who have believed in us. And that includes not only clients and those who carried us with them and still refer us business today, when maybe they heard us talk in 2012, and they'll still refer people to us. And that's just grace in action, and it's amazing. But it's also the mentors, it's also the teachers, it's also the partners, right? How much love came into what this company is. It has a heartbeat, and it's the heartbeat of the hearts and minds of all those who have ever helped to touch it and move it. So that being said, the way that we're going to celebrate is we're doing an anniversary giving campaign. So from November the 12th, which is today, through December the 20th, any individual and company that is purchasing services from us, and we have 3 different kinds. We've got the fractional services, which include project support, advising, consulting, learning, coaching. It's just a very tailored, prescriptive expression of meeting companies where they are with the problems maybe that they have and helping them solve them more largely. We have our Ready to Grow programs, which are the off-the-shelf ones, which I've mentioned, the proven curriculum to help build leaders to have communication as a core leadership competency. And then the third one is what I call the fold the universe approach. So think of the story of we had a week to get the pitch where it needed to be. That would be a fold the universe. We've got to do about 6 months to a year's worth of work in a week. And we do that.
That sounds really intense.
Yeah, it is. So any one of those 3 types of things falls under this offer. So from November the 12th to December the 20th, companies and individuals can purchase their services for $20.25, and then 18% of that total purchase will be made as a donation to one of the 3 nonprofits and they get to choose that, right? So essentially, they will get to make the donation to that nonprofit of that 18%. So it's not a discount; it's a donation. But then they get the tax. The company that is purchasing services from us, they get the tax benefit. They get to do something great with that 18%, and they get to get the services that they need, top tier services next year. So it's a pre-buy. That's okay. And but they do something wonderful with it. So the 3 nonprofits. First one is Red M, and Red M essentially we're a cadre of professionals and executives that are really intent on ending human trafficking, which is the 2nd largest criminal industry in the world. I hate to call it an industry, but it is. It's valued. I hate to say that it's valued at any kind of money, because human slavery sadly is a business, and it's to the tune of $245 billion annually. If you want to learn more, go to my personal feed. There's a great interview, both David Reed and Adam Steelstra. He's an Emmy award-winning storyteller. They've got a beautiful campaign that we're all supporting with Red M, and that's the Dear Anybody film campaign. And these PSA-style films are meant to engender not fear, but awareness, so that we can protect our families and our children. And they will come with these armed and equipped boxes that help provide proven education to interrupt that process. So just in Red M's education alone at companies, I believe 26 professionals' children have been recovered. Those professionals did not know that their children were being groomed and groomed online. And because of the education David and team are providing through Red M, Those individuals said, that sounds like my child. That sounds like exactly what I'm seeing. And so they sent a detective out and found that indeed that child had been targeted and they were being groomed. And there have been cases where they've gone missing, and Red M can get a task force on it immediately, whereas the police, there's a 2-day window. Anyhow, so they're doing good work. I serve on the development team. Everybody is a volunteer. None of us are getting paid. So that was pretty amazing to me. And we all do our little bit. So this is my little bit, right? So that could be one of the choices. You purchase the problem solving, or the speaker 911, or sales 911, whatever, or problem solving, or even a transformational project. We do organizational transformation projects. 18% of that bill will go, if you choose Red M, to Red M. The second nonprofit, Be Peace, Be Hope, I've supported for many years, and the CEO of that is a very good friend of mine, Cutting Parker, and she's just a love of a human being. And she provides, through Be Peace, Be Hope, under-resourced students, teachers, and parents with life-changing socio and emotional skills to enhance mental health and to transform their life situations. This program has gone to a lot of schools and transformed many spaces. It is measurable impact. They won the Menninger, a Menninger Award. So the Menninger Clinic deals with a lot of mental health and mental illness, and her programs have been featured there. Her programs have also gone to refugee camps. In fact, done incredible work there. So they have actually an app so that it can help the children to be able to grow and have the help they need in the palm of their hand. It's an incredible app. She's done amazing work. And essentially, it will empower K through 12 students, teachers, and parents 24/7 with essential skills in resilience, self-management, stress release, and emotional well-being. So essentially, for the cost of a box of crayons, one child can receive that critical mental health resource, and through this app, it can be provided to classrooms globally. So that could also be a choice. That purchase of, let's say you purchase the Great Ideas Powerfully Presented, which is a 12-hour presentation curriculum, and let's say you as a company purchase 6 iterations of that to unfold in 2025. You pay for that this year. In that November 12th to December 20th timeframe, 18% of that purchase could go to fund this app. And then the third one, my friend Diana Davila, she's the vice president for UTC, which is in logistics, and she's in charge of operations. This woman is a dynamo. Oh my gosh. You just meet her once and you love her. But she has a beautiful passion project called Women in Logistics Leadership. It's a nonprofit. And she is all for empowering women and helping them in their careers and in their lives. And so she had me out to speak for their Will Women's Leadership Conference. And she and I shared the stage talking about the transformative importance of boundaries, both to work and life. And we both hatched a plan. We're like, no, just being aware is one thing, but being able to actually, like, how do I practice that? Where do I practice that? How do I grow muscle and feel safe around that? It involves tribe and community, right? So we've put together these wind down events once a quarter where women can come and have a beautiful meal, fellowship and network and meet other women that are really intent on growing boundaries and the ability to feel comfortable within them and using them and expressing them. So that's one thing. And so not every woman has discretionary income available, nor discretionary income available for coaching. So she and I have created the WILL, which is Women's in Logistics Leadership, and the Performance Communication Company Scholarship Fund for Women. So let's say that a company purchases the Masterful Delivery training, which is the storytelling aspects of speaking. And let's say that they purchase, I don't know, 10 of those to unfold across the year at their global company. They could designate 18% of that total, if it's purchased between November 12th to December 20th, to go to Will. And it would go to our specific scholarship fund. And then women in any career could apply to have a scholarship, either for much needed coaching or learning, or to be a part, for example, of this beautiful boundary event that we're getting ready to unfold. And so they'll be able to apply and get some education that otherwise they wouldn't receive. I've been a single mother, building my company and raising 2 kids, and I can tell you, there were a lot of generous people who contributed to me and scholarship to me. And I'd like to say thank you, in fact, to some of them who gave for years and just loved me along the way and supported me. One of those is, of course, Marilyn Fance, who worked with me for so many years, and I am where I am today because of her love and her care and her generosity. And also Peter Possiman, who was our managing director and dear friend. I learned so many wonderful things from him, and Jennifer Welch and Shafiq Papa and Ken Jones and Dave Cook. All of these individuals are just amazing global thought leaders and gave so generously. And that doesn't include all of the wonderful music teachers and family and friends and church community. I'm so grateful to all of them. To you, Doug, my dear friend and talented friend.
Well, now you're just being kind.
No, I have some notes on like the amazing, like some of the things that I was discovering, like, just how you talk about light and light through your lens. So I look forward to getting to feature you coming up here soon and talk about that. You're doing beautiful work, so thank you for that. And thanks to all of you for listening. I hope our 18th anniversary celebration giving campaign will have some success, and putting it in God's hands and releasing it, and I'm hopeful.
Well, I laud you on the campaign and giving back to the community. Being generous of heart is such an important part, I think, about being a business owner, being a founder, being in business, giving back. Yes, we want to grow for our own personal desires and whatnot, but reminding ourselves on a regular basis, and this is something, guys, I struggle with. I have to remind myself, it's important to be generous. It's important to give back. It's important to say there are others out there who are not where I'm at now, and whatever I can give back, whether financially or with my time or wherever that may be, is such an important part of growing as a human, whatever your religious faith may be. Mariam and I both happen to go to the same church, but whatever your religious faith may be, growing as a human is giving back is such an essential part of that. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves that it's important to do it not only at a personal level, but also at a professional level as well. So Mariam, I applaud you for doing that with this campaign and for supporting both. All 3 of these organizations are excellent organizations to support. I'm gonna throw my hat in there, guys, and say the Red M Project is from what I have seen of it. I've not gotten personally involved with it yet, but from what I've seen, is such an important message that we need to support and get out, because the industry is, and you're right, it's hard to call the human trafficking an industry, but that's exactly what it is. And it is modern day slavery. Slavery has not disappeared. We've not gotten rid of it. It's just morphed into it and something new and more insidious, in my opinion. So getting the word out and just letting people know that this is an awareness that we need to be aware of, so that we can prevent more children from being abducted and trafficked and lost into that world. So I applaud you for Mariam for getting out there and supporting that group and the way that you do. As we wrap up, as we land this plane, if someone has additional questions, someone is interested in their own personal learning who they are personally as a speaker, and are needing some personal help with their speaking engagements, or has a team that they want to really help craft their message so that their team is cohesive and promote their company and whatnot, what's the best way to reach out to you and investigate where you can best help them?
Absolutely. So I'm asserting that someone likely hears this on LinkedIn, and the easiest way is to reach out to me and message me so that I can respond. And I will be doing a post where I'm going to be also posting the link. You can click the link and schedule a time very easily to talk to me. Additionally, they could go to our website, www.perf, that would be PERF, com, C-O-M like Mary, M like Mary, COMP.com. So that would be go to www.perfcomcomp.com, and those stand for Performance Communication Company. The Performance Communication Company.
I will put a link in. When I post the recording, I will put a link to Miriam's company as well. So if there's any question, if you didn't get a chance to write that down, we'll make sure that you have that available. Mariam, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I want to wish you all the best with your 18th year celebration anniversary, and this new campaign that you're working on, and continued success with the company, because I know you bring a lot of value to your clients, and I know how important, how difficult it is to get up on that stage and speak. Stage fright it's a real thing, and it affects more than just actors. It's a real disease that can infect anybody at any level, and Mariam has some wonderful tools to help you get past that stage fright, so that you can stand in front of that potential audience and feel really, really confident. So thank you so much, Mariam, for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much, Doug, for having me out, and thanks to all of you who are listening. I really appreciate your time, and if you I would love to hear from you, and please also spread the word. And I would love to serve anyone that needs our services, and I'm hopeful that this campaign will also be successful and help get some necessary funds to some good work that's happening out there. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And just a quick programming note. This is normally every 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time, it's Thanksgiving. We're going to take that week off. So be looking out for our next episode in December. So take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye now.